Motivated reasoning. This is when someone is motivated to come to a certain conclusion, so they figure out a way to get to that conclusion by hook or by crook, even if they sound ridiculous in the process. Have you ever known anyone to do this? Motivated reasoning is technically not a logical fallacy, but motivated reasoning leads to logical fallacies. So we're going to put it into this series of uncovering flaws in people's thinking, communication, and logic in this series right here. So let's talk about what this is. Motivated reasoning is when you start with a conclusion and then you create a rationalization to make that conclusion be true. So if you already have something you want to believe, that's your motivation, then you come up with reasons to support that motivation. Again, have you ever met a human being who has done this? I'm sure all of you have engaged with many. For example, if someone smokes a lot and you say to them, hey, you probably shouldn't smoke because it's shortening your life every time you smoke a cigarette, they say something like, well, my grandma smoked a pack of cigarettes every day and she lived till she was 95 years old. Now, does that logically make any sense? Of course, it does not logically make sense. We know that exceptions often prove rather than disprove rules. But if a person is motivated to keep smoking and need to come up with an excuse to do so, then they will come up with anything. Anything will do because they're motivated to have this reason. So what you're actually doing is what we call rationalizing. Rationalizing is when you come up with a rational sounding excuse or rational sounding reason for anything that you want to do, even though it logically doesn't actually make sense. Why do people rationalize? Because it satisfies our emotions. The human beings are much more driven by emotions than we are driven by logic. That's why I point out logical fallacies. I'm only talking to a small percentage of the population. Now, how do you defend yourself against someone's motivated reasoning, or how do you call somebody out on their bullshit motivated reasoning, which is usually what you're doing? There's a couple things you can do. Number one, you can call out the bias. You can say, sounds like you just want to smoke and you're coming up with any excuse to keep smoking. You can just say that and just call it out if you're that type of person. Another thing you can do is you can force a hypothetical. You can say, okay, well, what if your grandmother had died when she was 55? Would that make you stop smoking? And they're probably going to say no, and they probably don't have an argument or a pushback to that, which proves their bullshit, that it was motivational reasoning all along. The third thing you can do, you can say, hey, what will prove you wrong? All right, let's say your grandmother did smoke every day until she was 95 and she lived to 95. You're 22 and you're smoking every day. What would happen? What would need to happen or need to be true for you to decide I'm going to stop smoking cigarettes? Is there anything? If they can't answer the question, then you know that they're using motivated reasoning because nothing will stop them from smoking. So again, any excuse will sound good. Or the last thing you can do is you can expose their emotion. You can just say to them, dude, you just want an emotional excuse to give yourself to keep smoking cigarettes, even though you know it doesn't help you. So you're just coming up with any bullshit to say to me. If it's one of your friends, you should be able to say that to them. But anyway, these are the things you can do to challenge and catch somebody in their motivated reasoning. You want to learn more about these communication skills, these logical techniques that you can use to objectively notice what's happening? Go to the link in my bio and let's get to work. Work on your game.